So we are going to get started. As always, if you are looking for the most in-depth IFA teachings, transformative divination sessions, and authentic IFA products and services, you are definitely in the right place, guys. If you're watching this broadcast live, definitely be sure to add any comments or questions that you have in the chat box as we go along, and I'll try to address them through and through the presentation. And then also, if you're watching it on replay, go ahead and submit your questions in the comment sections. Greetings, greetings, greetings to everyone who is joining us so far. I do want to make a quick announcement. We do have the new spiritual investigation reading services available now on the website. I've been getting a lot of requests about these services since I did the last episode, previous maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, where we talked about the different types of IFA readings, and I discussed spiritual investigations. And as I did, I got quite a few requests, and I was handling them via invoice, which I do for people that we already work for. So I decided to, Disney and I both decided that it's best to go ahead and put them on the website. You can get them at a discounted rate right now for a short period of time. I don't know when that ends. So check that out if you're interested in it. It allows you to ask a direct question without getting an Odoo generated in the reading, whereby you're going to give all of those different sacrifices and offerings and things like that for people who just want a direct answer. So that is one new thing. Definitely greeting, my dear. Is it Renoverse? Greetings and thank you for joining. Thank everybody for joining. Those of you also on Instagram, I can't put you on the stage, but I appreciate whoever is joining, wherever you're joining from. I am ready for a lively discussion, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We're talking about spiritual spouses in this episode. Who are they? What are they? Where do they come from, right? How do we know that we have a spiritual spouse? And how can we appease these forces in order to have better outcomes and experiences in our lives if we are dealing with challenges related to this particular group of spiritual forces, okay? So on YouTube, I did a survey and I asked you guys, what did you want to know most about it? And this was the outcome of the survey before coming into the session. It may have changed if anybody has added any input there. So about 56% of you all wanted to know how to identify whether you have a spiritual husband or wife. About 22% of you all wanted to understand the impact of these forces on your life. Another 22% were curious about whether they were good or bad forces, and nobody prioritized how to remove them, which I am so glad about, because these are forces that you do not want to remove from your life experience. And we're going to dig into that shortly, even though they can cause some serious trouble. And I also got some questions from you guys on Instagram. There I asked just for direct feedback. What do you want to know about it? And I got quite a few responses, and we're going to cover all of that in today's session. Again, thank you all for participating in these particular surveys, because it helps a lot with the episode. So this is here. He is greeting everyone, and we are going to go ahead and move forward now and just really start to explore these particular connections, okay? So we're looking at it from the perspective of IFA, as we do here on this dynamic, these channels that I work with the IFA tradition on. So a spiritual husband or a wife, this is a metaphysical force of being, somebody who is in the astral realm, okay? We're not referring to a earthly soulmate or something like that, because that exists as well. But these are not the same as a spiritual spouse. Spiritual spouses, husbands, wives, they exist in the spiritual realm, in the heavenlies, okay? They are part of your Egbe Orun group. Okay, the astral mates, the heavenly forces, the heavenly peers that help to direct and guide our lives in so many different ways. All right. And they absolutely impact our physical reality, some people's physical reality. So, for those of you all who may not be full on familiar with the concept of Egbe Orun, these are those astral mates, those forces, this group of peers that are in our lives to help us to achieve or accomplish our destiny. They're very, very similar to like our really close friend groups here on the earth. Some of the people like in your friendship circle, you could actually be related to. They could be your cousins, they could be your siblings or what have you. But they also include the people who are close in your life in different ways. So even like your workmates and your schoolmates and so forth and so on. So Egbe Orun can kind of be thought about in a similar way as this group of people, your strongest group of supporters in your real physical life here on earth. All right. In the Ifa tradition or Yoruba language as a whole, Oko Orun is referred to as a spiritual husband, right? Ìyàwó Orun is referred to as the spiritual wife. So that's how we classify them. Right. So this is an entity whom you share a very special connection with beyond just your regular Egbe Orun group. Your spiritual husband or spiritual wife is somebody that you would consider to be married to, very similar to right here on earth. Whereas you have your, regular friend groups, your regular family, and so forth and so on. However, you also have this, really close mate, a physical mate rather, in the earthly realm, whom you connect with, and you're going to share your most intimate experiences with beyond sex. I'm not just talking about sex, but even like the deeper layers of who you are. Same thing when it comes to your Egbe Orun mate or what have you. Greetings, my dear alien black girl. Thank you for joining us. So that's pretty much the sum of what like an Egbe Orun group looks like, and that spiritual spouse is that really, really special entity that falls into that group. Now, not everybody does have an Egbe class that they come from. Every single person does. However, every person does not have a spiritual husband or wife. And even in cases where people do have spiritual husbands and wife, all of them do not negatively impact that person's life. So understand that. But in many cases, they do. In some cases, I should say, they do. So I would definitely encourage you guys, if you are experiencing any of the things that we're going to talk about here today, to look into that as to whether your spiritual mate is impacting your life. Don't know what this says, but he puts it on the screen. Well, he put it in a comment, and I'm putting it on the screen for anybody who knows what it says and can vibe with that. So now, this group, for those of you all who ask, and some people did ask me this on IG, like, this is a good group or what have you. They are benevolent forces. All of your Egbe group are benevolent forces. They are good spiritual forces that are meant to help you exist and lead the best life you possibly can. Again, they're like your really close group of friends on earth. So the people that you would think about, like if you're having any kind of problem, if you have money challenges, or you maybe have relationship problems, you go to these people and you talk to them about it, you ask them for help, guidance, or what have you. Same thing with your Egbe group, right? So these forces are absolutely benevolent. They are here to help us to grow, to elevate, to move forward in our lives, and so forth and so on, right? And they provide some really useful things. They actually protect us. They provide us with different levels of comfort, and even so financial stability rather. Particularly when we are really closely bonded with them. We're doing what we acknowledge what we were supposed to do before we came from Orun. Unfortunately, that's not the case for everybody, because many people have spiritual husbands and wives, but they don't know it, and they are not acknowledging what they were meant to acknowledge before they left Orun. So they maybe made some promises to this group of spiritual forces, and now they're not keeping those promises. And what's happening in that particular process is that they are suffering from not maintaining those promises. And this is where those blockages come in. where a person's life is significantly disrupted because they are not feeding or appeasing their Egbe group properly. Okay. When this happens, they're still not considered to be evil or bad forces in your life. They're still good forces. In fact, a lot of the things that they are doing to show you that, this relationship could be so much better, your life could be so much better. They're coming in showing you who they are so that you can fix those dynamics. And once you fix those dynamics, then you can move forward in a much better way in life. And even sometimes they will cause issues in relationships. And I'm going to really dig into that shortly with the signs and the symptoms. They can cause these relationship issues, and they're actually good sometimes when they do, because they may be preventing you from being with the wrong person or a wrong connection or what have you. So don't always look at it as bad or negative. They're really trying to wake you up when you start to experience some quote unquote ill effects from them. So now I'm going to really go through and take a deep dive into the various signs and symptoms. And I classified these according to different categories because it's a lot. And so I want to really go into it so some people can understand if you're experiencing these things, it could be an issue related to your Egbe group. Before I do, I definitely want to give a disclaimer though. Not every relationship problem, health issue, life issue that I will mention here is a result of you having problems with your spiritual mate. It could be due to something else. It could be due to other spiritual issues. It could actually be due to negative spiritual forces. It could also be to other benevolent spiritual forces trying to get your attention. Likewise, when we're talking about health issues or other life issues, some of these things could just be natural. Okay, so keep those things in mind. Don't automatically assume that everything is from your spiritual mate. You want to do further investigation to determine the source of the problem. And we're going to get to how to do that a little bit later on. So we're first going to start with the dream world, because Egbe often come up in your dreams. They are going to show themselves very frequently to you in your dreams, even when your relationship with them is good. I know personally I dream about my Egbe all the time, probably every night, right? I'm having some kind of Egbe dream where I'm taken into the astral realm, and my dreams, I'm always like going somewhere, like really in a different space, and I know I'm in a different space, and you're communicating with me. And a lot of times they're telling me some really amazing things to help me out in my life. Sometimes they're just showing me different things. It could be so many different realities. So if somebody has a spiritual husband or a spouse, in their dream life, they will oftentimes have reoccurring dreams that's related to getting married, engaged, being in a romantic relationship or something like that. Even so, dreams of having children in their dreams, a mysterious partner, especially if it's the same type of mysterious partner over and over again. You're seeing the same mysterious figure, and it even could be a familiar figure, but you don't know who it is. Sometimes your Egbe can also present in your dream as a partner, but it could be somebody that you know in real life. It could be your real life partner, or just somebody else that you know, a friend, a companion, or somebody that you maybe even saw in your day. And your Egbe may present themselves with the face of their person so that it's more familiar to you. Okay. Also, like just having this feeling that you are married in the dream realm. You just feel like there's something else out there. Like I have a mate somewhere, but you don't know where that mate is. Even if you are actually married in the physical realm, you just have this feeling like there's something else, somebody else out there, and you can't figure it out. This is a huge one. People having really lucid sexual dreams, encounters, or experiences with an unseen force, right? Usually it's going to be a familiar figure in that person's life, but sexual dreams are a huge telltale sign of an Egbe mate. And this is actually not good. So if you are having sexual encounters in the dream life, you really need to go ahead and take care of that, because that definitely impacts excuse me, real world relationships on a high level. And it's just not good. If you're having these really deep level encounters, you shouldn't be, because your Egbe should not really be that close to you on a regular basis. They are meant to be in Orun, the heavenly realm, or you're meant to be here in the physical realm. And each of you all are supposed to be having your own set of experiences. And if they're really, really close to you, they're going to wreak havoc in your life. That's just the reality of it. If you are having feelings that you are like just drained or disturbed after you have real life, intimate dreams or experiences, or even so real life ones as well, but we'll get to that part too. Night paralysis. Some people report like they feel like they're being held down when they're sleeping. They can't move. Sometimes they can't even breathe, and they're trying to get away from something, or for something is holding them down. That could be your Egbe or room actually interfering in your life. Again, not a good thing, especially if you're having issues with breathing during that time, because that's a sign that your Egbe may actually be trying to take you home back to a room. So you want to be really, really careful when it comes to those dynamics, okay? If you're having dreams of a certain figure or something like that who is issuing commands to you, telling you can't be with a certain partner or something like that, very strong sign that you have an Egbe mate. And do let me re-emphasize, I think I said it before, but I do want to say it again here, especially got people joining. Guys, this can affect both males and females. It is not something that only affects women, though women tend to suffer more because of societal expectations, especially when it comes to the romantic factors or what have you. And I'm going to dig into that shortly. A lot of times men can brush off a lot of these experiences and it's nothing for them. But traditionally, women have suffered because of the stigma that are associated with different things that we go through when it comes to dealing with a spiritual mate. Okay. Emotional or psychological symptoms. We're going to get into these. So if you are really dealing with chronic patterns of romantic rejection or sabotage, right? Somebody just suddenly being disinterested in you and you think everything is going well. I see this all the time on threads, in particular with these dating threads. Don't even know how they get into my feed, but they do. And people are saying, I was in a relationship with this guy, or I just started talking to this guy, or what have you, or it could be a woman, and everything seemed to be going all right. We laughed, we did this, we did that, we did so forth and so on together, and then all of a sudden, he was gone. He just ghosted me. I didn't hear from him again, or what have you. A lot of times when I'm seeing these scenarios, I'm like, yeah, they are probably dealing with spiritual mate and they don't know it, because the threads that are coming through are just general threads from my end. It's not like somebody that's like really deep into the spiritual community and they have an understanding of this phenomenon, but it impacts everybody's life. You don't have to practice. Most people don't practice Ifa or another African tradition or indigenous tradition that talks about these dynamics and can really point them in the right direction. So if you are dealing with a situation like that where you're having these relationship encounters and everything just seems to be going well, then all of a sudden it just cuts off for no reason and you keep having these repetitive experiences, that's a strong sign that you have a spiritual mate. A lot of times people who have spiritual spouses end up being themselves very, very obsessive, right? Emotionally or physically emotionally with somebody who is either physically or emotionally unavailable to them or toxic. So if somebody is really dealing with repetitive toxic relationships, just all the time, something that is draining them, that's keeping them from being happy, that's a strong sign that their Egbe mate is interfering with their life. So they really need to go ahead and try to do something about it. Otherwise, they're going to continue to experience that toxicity, or they just always end up being in love with somebody who's not available, somebody who's married or in another relationship, and maybe they're the side chick, or what they call the man, the side dude, or something like that. I don't know. So it could be something like that. This type of scenario happens really, really frequently because your Egbe mate, your spouse, doesn't want you to be happy in a relationship because they're still in love with you. They still want to be with you. So they'll do a lot of things to cause problems in your life so that you're not enjoying your physical relationships. That can also impact your friendships as well. So it's not just in the romance department. It can also impact platonic relationships, family bonds, and things like that. Connections with others, even people on your job and things like that. So watch out for that. If you're consistently experiencing global relationship challenges and it's hard for you to maintain really strong, good connections with people, and it doesn't make sense, especially, you're doing things to maintain a relationship, you're a nice person or what have you, and people are constantly just leaving your life, and you just don't understand why it could be a problem with an egg-based mate. Emotional instability, depression, anxiety. This is going to be really, really common, even when a person is, everything is going good in their person's life, right? They are enjoying their relationship, but they're constantly anxious, feeling like something is wrong, something's going to happen, something will go wrong for me, or something will happen bad in this experience. 9 times out of 10 is because they're dealing with a mate on the other side. So that's making them feel anxious or nervous for whatever reason. Okay. Unexplained breakups or love life challenges, right? You just never progress. Similar to what I said before, you're going down the road and it just never progresses to anything meaningful, lasting, or impactful. So it could even be where you spend like maybe 10 years in a relationship with a person, and maybe you are about to get married to them and it just breaks up, right? Or you could have like some prolonged relationships, maybe 2 to 3 years in, and every time you get to that certain mark in that relationship, something happens and it just falls apart. Hmm? That is very much so a telltale sign of somebody who has a spiritual mate that they need to take care of. Or even so, just engagement, things like that. Things just every time you get to a certain place, it could be an engagement, it could be a wedding. Like I said before, it could be a relationship you've gone 10 years, you and this person have done good for 10 years, been happy. You could even get married to them. And as soon as you get married to that person, within a few months, you get a divorce. And it's like, what just happened here, right? Greetings, everybody who is joining us. Thank you all for coming in. Serial adultery, inability of either partner to remain faithful in the relationship for prolonged periods of time. This is a big one too, because societally it's often looked at as just a negative thing. A man is just considered to be, being a man, right? He's just sleeping with all these different women. And of course, if a woman does, she's considered to be a whore. It's not good in either scenario, okay? If somebody is dealing with this situation, it is likely because they have a spiritual, it could be, I'm going to say it could be because they have a spiritual mate whom they need to appease. And it's not always that that person is doing something just because they want to be engaged in these situations. Again, it's their Egbe mate trying to keep them from being in a long-term committed relationship. So they'll just cause all kind of disturbances in their relationship. So if either you or your partner is, you're in a relationship and maybe your partner is just always cheating, you're doing everything that you possibly can to make their relationship work, one or both of you could have a spiritual mate. Okay. Likewise, even if it's you, if you're having issues, and this applies again to men too, it's not you're being a man all the time. You could be dealing with a spiritual wife and not know it. And so you have an insatiable appetite for different women, and you just think it's normal because society perpetuates this behavior, unfortunately, in men. Pornography is a big one as well. Okay. A lot of people who have spiritual spouses end up with addictive behaviors to pornography, compulsive sexual behaviors, fetishes, things like that, just heightened sexual desire when there's no real source or outlet available that they should be in this particular space. But they oftentimes are. And so that is definitely something that you need to look into. I did a video kind of about these two aspects that I just explained on the YouTube channel. It didn't go as in depth as I would have liked it to, but it does talk about this a little bit as well. Losing interest in partners after you have some kind of mysterious dream. You just have a funny dream and you wake up and then all of a sudden you just don't want to be in a relationship with your mate. All right. Just unexplainable fear of commitment or intense desire to remain single forever. And it doesn't really make sense. I saw a clip yesterday, matter of fact. I was scrolling on Instagram and it was a clip of Kool Moe Dee. Some of you all may know him. He's an old school rapper, right? And he was talking about why he never had children. And he was basically saying like he was in a situation where he never wanted to make a baby, to be in poverty, so forth and so on. And then the people in the comment section, it was like kind of dividing. Some people were like, okay, but you got into a space where you were no longer in poverty. So, why not have a child after that? Because I think he's like 62 now, at least in the interview, he was like 62 when he was talking about this phenomenon. And when I'm watching it, I'm like, he probably had a spiritual wife and didn't know it. And so he just never had a desire to get married and to procreate, right? Because it's just a normal part of our lives. And I get the part about him making smart decisions when he was younger, which I agree with, not to have children and to bring them into poverty. But there was absolutely a space in his life where he had enough money to take care of children. So he likely just was in that space. He never got married or anything like that. He could. I'm not saying that he does because I have no idea. But it just gave me that type of vibe because that type of thing is really, really common in people who have spiritual mates. Okay, so feeling like you are cheating when you're dating somebody, but you're single in the physical realm. You have nobody else. You're dating a specific person, but you feel like you're cheating when you are not. That's a sign like your Egbe spouse is really getting to you, right? So your wife or your husband, depending on your gender or what have you, your sex, they could be really getting to you, like bringing up some kind of guilt consciousness in you. Okay. Repeated partner withdrawal, illnesses after intimacy. I mean serious illnesses too, not just like stomach hurt or whatever. Somebody may start to experience like cancers or diabetes or things like that every time they deal with a particular person. Even so, death, so that kind of Black widow syndrome, right? This is something that has been ostracized in society as well. Especially, a woman, she gets married and then the husband dies. She gets married again and the husband dies. And she gets married again and the husband dies. And they look at her like, in the old time, was like she's a witch or something like that. Probably had a spiritual spouse, spiritual husband, didn't know it, never took care of him properly. So every time she got married, he would end the relationship through the death of that person that she was with. Fertility and health issues. This is a big thing as well. A lot of times people who have spiritual mates have infertility issues. And what happens many times is they go to the doctor trying to deal with it that way, getting artificial insemination and all these different procedures or whatnot. And sometimes that's not the issue. Sometimes it can just be taken care of through spiritual work because their spiritual spouse is blocking them from having a child. Consistent repetitive miscarriages, things like that, right? Especially if it occurs at the same stage every single time you get pregnant. You get to that 3-month mark, you lose the baby. And it just happens over and over and over again. It may not be a medical issue, especially if you're going to the doctors and they can't figure out what's wrong. It's probably a spiritual issue. Inexplicable sexual dysfunction or pain during intimacy could be a sign of a spiritual spouse. Okay. Physical marks. Anytime you have spiritual manifestations, marks, scratches, pressure marks, and things like that on your body after you slept, and there was no physical reason for you to have these marks on your body. You go to sleep, your face is clear, your arms, legs, whatever, they're clear. You're not sleeping next to anybody. Nobody is physically in your presence. Nothing is in the bed that would cause something to put a scratch or a mark on your body. And you wake up the next day and you got marks and scratches on you. You definitely dealing with some type of spiritual phenomena. It could be a spiritual mate, could be related to your Egbe group as a whole. So check on it quickly. All right, because that is definitely not a good sign if you're experiencing things like that. Okay, also, it can cause some general spiritual and life blockages, your spiritual spouse, that is. So, sometimes people hear voices, they hear somebody calling them and their name or what have you. They may go to answer and nobody's there, or they may even hear that voice calling them in a very familiar voice. So, like a child, or their mate, their physical mate, parents, or whomever. And then they go and they ask that person, well, I just, heard you calling me. What's up? What do you need? And the person like, I didn't call you. Right? Could be a sign of a spiritual mate. Again, the Egbe group in general bothering them. Somebody just feeling like they're being touched. You feel hands or some kind of presence around you. Could be your Egbe. If you're seeing things like out of the corner of your eye. Experiences like that. I've had those experiences quite a bit with my Egbe just standing over me, and I'm just feeling like there's something there, or I can even see something like moving in the distance. And I know, okay, this is my Egbe. What do they want? So I'm like, all right, I need to feed them or something like that. Or if I've already fed them, I'm like, what's going on? Because something is bothering me right now. I experience that quite often here in this space, actually. If I'm sitting here and that door is open and I can just see something out of the corner of my eye, I just feel a presence standing there. And I check on it. I do. So I don't just leave it. I always ask how will this. So if I'm having some type of experience, make sure is this my Egbe or is this some other type of presence that is around me, so that I can make sure that everything is good with me. All right, because they can interfere in your life in that way. So we got a question here. You're saying, I need to ask, what reading should I get for this spiritual investigation? This is very relevant to me, and I've been wondering how to get help for it. Very good question. I'm going to get deeper into that, because you can do it for a divination, or you can do a spiritual investigation for it. But give me a few minutes, because I do want to explain that in depth to show like which one is better depending on your circumstance, because it really just depends on the individual when it comes to that particular notion. So let's see. Blockages in career, finances, or general progress. They don't just impact your relationship. If you're having a lot of financial problems, lots of delays in your finances, that could be a sure sign that your Egbe are bothering you. Every time you take 2 steps forward, you get pulled 4 steps backward. Very strong indicator of Egbe complicating a person's life, okay? And you definitely want to take care of them. So, okay, you're very welcome, my dear. We're going to get to it. Trust me. Been there, done it. Still going through that, right? So I absolutely have a spiritual husband. I have a very close Egbe group who have bothered my life. And so I went through a lot of different things until I found out about them. And once I started to worked through my issues with my Egbe group, my life just really changed for the better. It's completely different turnaround. Okay. Monica, you're saying this is good. Thank you, my dear. I'm hoping it helps people because this is something that I see so many people go through. I'm seeing it and I'm like, I can't say anything because it's not my place until somebody comes to me and asks me or says something to me, or if it affects somebody in my immediate family, of course I'm going to say things about it. But otherwise, I just have to let it be. We're going to get now to the dangers of neglecting your Igbe. Then we're going to talk about how do we overcome these issues with our Igbe group. All right. Failing to appease or honor your Igbe properly can lead to long-term, persistent disruptions and challenges in areas of your life. Monica, you're Igbe priestess. Wow, beautiful. That is great because that's so much needed. Because Igbe are a really, really special class of Orisha. They're not like other Orishas. And a lot of times you will have to go to an Egbe priestess to get some things, a priest, I should say, not just priestess, but somebody who specializes in working with Egbe to remedy certain problems. So definitely. You're thank you, my dear. You said your presentations are always dynamic. Thank you so much. So much you want to say you're very welcome. Maybe it's my Egbe challenging me right now, right? Because they do that. But either way, let's see. So you don't want to not appease this group of spirits. You definitely want to pay really thorough attention to what's going on with them. I've said it before, right up there with Ori and ancestors, your Egbe are a group that you want to really work with quite often, especially if you have challenges in this area with them, because your life is not going to be the way you desire it to be otherwise. It's just the way it goes. These aren't passive spirits by any means. When you ignore or neglect their relationship with you, they will oftentimes withdraw their support from you. And then also they can actively call you back to Orun, which is heaven. So you guys know what that means. You will transition if you don't work with your Egbe properly and get to that next level of your journey. Okay. As I said before, they cause blockages. They can even cause issues with other forms of rituals working for you. So you can go and get all the other ritual work in the world done. And if you have serious problems with your Egbe or room, they can cause you to fall backwards. So an example would be you go and get some ritual work because you're having issues with your finances, particularly if they're caused by Egbe or what have you. But you go and you do ritual work to feed Oshun, for instance. You just think, I need to feed Oshun. So I'm going to give an offering for Oshun, tell my Awo to feed Oshun because my money is not real, or IG, either one. And so you do that, and you might see some results from that. You might see things start to get better, but then all of a sudden things fall backwards because you didn't feed Egbe, and Egbe was the issue that particular time. All right, so you just don't want to ignore them. Okay. You will likely continuously just have those misfortunes in love and finances and health and so forth and so on. Certain reversals of progress, especially after breakthrough, as I just mentioned. Okay. It can leave you also feeling very, very lonely and isolated because you will have quite a few relationship challenges if you have a very active spiritual spouse in your life, because they will consistently remove relationships from you, both romantic and platonic. So it's not just romantic relationships all the time. Sometimes it can be both. Sometimes it may just be one or the other. Either way, you will likely have a lot of challenges and you will likely feel lonely and isolated, even sometimes when you're in a relationship, because you can still be in a relationship and have a whole lot of challenges there. So now we're going to get to the part that I know you all are waiting for, right? How do we overcome these issues with our spiritual spouse? So these entities can overlap with other spiritual forces, the things that are going on in your life. It could be also physical, as I mentioned before. You want to go get either divination or a spiritual investigation. So that was the question the first time. If you have no idea of what's going on and you're dealing with a lot of turbulence and trauma in your life, I suggest doing ether divination. Why? Because this is a comprehensive reading that will flesh out everything that's going on with you at that time. You're going to get an ODU generated that's going to speak really, really deeply to your life circumstances. If you just want to know, is this my spiritual, my spiritual spouse or my Egbe group or what have you that is bothering my life, you can do a spiritual investigation and go in and ask that direct question. But that is going to give you a direct response to that question. It is not going to investigate the full scope of your life experience. So that part is going to be up to you. If you've never worked with the Ifa tradition or what have you, and you're considering this might be me, I'm having these type of issues, I would suggest Ifa divination, full-on divination for that. If you're already working with the tradition and maybe you've had a recent reading and maybe it didn't come up that you have this issue, then a spiritual investigation to dig further to see if this could be the case for your life. So I hope I answered you there, my dear. I forget the name, but I hope I answered your question there. You cannot remove a spiritual spouse. I've heard people say that you can go and get your Egbe removed. First of all, this is not something that you want to do because your Egbe are a part of your spiritual team. You don't want to sever that connection. You actually want it there because they are good forces that are working to help you out in so many different aspects of your life. However, if you're having problems with them, you do want to do appeasement work where you can put a healthy distance between you and your spiritual mate and even possibly other members of your Egbe group if they are causing you problems. Okay, so let's see. You said I did answer it. Perfect. Thank you for that too. So when it comes to appeasement work, there's so many different things that can happen. Everybody's situation is different. This is why you have to get a reading to see what is going on in your particular situation. Okay. If you know you have a spiritual mate and they've been bothering your life, you are going to be doing regular appeasement for the rest of your life. That's just how it goes. All right. That there's no set standard to it. Like you, for instance, have to give your Egbe offering every single month or what have you. If you do that, it'll be good in your life. You probably would be much, much better off as well. However, there's no set, everybody has to do X, Y, Z in this particular case. You're going to have to get your readings to see what you need to do. All right. If it just comes up in your spirit, I need to feed my Egbe. Even if you don't have a spiritual mate, you need to go ahead and feed your Egbe because this is a really, really important group of spirits. Anytime my Egbe come up and I just feel like I gotta feed them, I'm going straight to feed them. I do not play about that group of spirits because they can cause me they have caused me some challenges in life, and I don't want to go back through what I've been through prior to knowing who they were and starting to work with them in the way that I work with them now. In very extreme cases, there may be some really special high-level ceremonies that you will have to do in order to put that healthy distance between your spiritual spouse and yourself. This is something I had to do because my spiritual husband wasn't playing about me. He still don't play about me. And so you have to go through that process sometimes in order to make situations better in your life, depending on what you want your life to look like. In certain cases, you may even have to take a kosher, that spiritual medicine. I talked about that more in depth in a few episodes back, a live stream that we did a few weeks ago. So check that out if you're not familiar with the concept of spiritual medicine. Okay. You may even have to have your Egbe pod or your Egbe icon with you and be feeding it, on a regular basis in your home or in your space. And definitely I have my Egbe icon with me because of the group that I belong to, which is Eleko. So if you do belong to Eleko, get that icon. you need that definitely, because that particular group of Egbe just is something else. It's a really different group, and so you want to make sure that you're consistently maintaining that group of Egbe Orun. And definitely, if you just want to know, if you're curious, what's my Egbe group? What do I belong to? Should I be doing XYZ with them? You can get a spiritual investigation for something like that if you're just curious. If you're not having any major problems at this particular time, that's a great way to figure out what group I belong to and what should I do to be appeasing them, if you just want to know that. It can vary so much as far as how long it takes for you to resolve the issues with your Egbe. All right. Sometimes you can see immediate results right after you get a ritual done, within a couple of days, within a couple of weeks, months, what have you. Sometimes it can literally take years for you to see results from this type of work. It really depends on what it is, what your situation is, how long it's been, right? Because the longer it's been with you without you taking care of your Egbe, likely the more problems that you're going to have in a certain area of your life. Okay. And I am about to close up soon, guys. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box on whatever platform you're on, and we'll get to those. Okay. So it can take a while, or it could take a short period of time. You don't know. So we don't know, really. Nobody knows it until you actually start that process. So I do have a question here. I keep having a dream about a man. Is that my spiritual spouse? Doesn't have a face, but the energy gives it clearly my man. Probably is. If you're feeling that, you said my man, likely it is your spiritual spouse. Of course, I can't answer that question with assurance through this type of communication by any means. You would have to have either divination or do a spiritual investigation to determine if that is your spiritual spouse and what you need to do to appease him properly so that you can get things in your life to flow better for you. And also, let me say this. So even if you're not having challenges, as it were, if you're working with your Egbe properly, and that's anybody, if you're working with this group of spirits properly, your life will just get better either way. So even if things are going okay for you, you can see some major advancements in your life when you start to properly work with your Egbe group. If you have a spiritual spouse, you will definitely see things start to advance and work in a better way in your life once you start doing the proper ritual work to appease that particular group of spirits. Okay. Your spouse can return after you've done the ritual work. They can return to disturb your life if that issue isn't fully resolved. This is why it's so important for you to be working with somebody to know if you have a spiritual spouse and what steps to take, because it's not always just one ritual or one thing that you do. Sometimes it can take multi layers and several steps for you to overcome this issue. And if the work isn't fully done, so maybe you're told like you're going to have to do these different things throughout, and you maybe start on the process and you do one thing and then you start to see your life get better and you don't go ahead and move forward and finish off the other steps, that energy will return back to you in the same way, or even it could be a worse way. It could be with more force the next time if you don't go ahead and fully go through that process, right? Or if you reopen that door through neglect, because as I said before, even when you do ritual work to appease your Egbe, it may be an ongoing process for you in particular. Okay, so you might have to continue to work with an Egbe pot or an icon or something like that and give offerings on a regular basis. And so if you don't do that, you can have problems. You're saying, I'm queer. Does it reflect with the spiritual spouse? I don't know. That's a really good question. So I don't know. I don't want to say, excuse me. I don't want to say if it does or not. From a traditional perspective, you would likely have a spiritual husband. From my knowledge, from what I know, but I don't know. I would just, if you're there, can you answer that question for us? Like, would that reflect if somebody is in like a same-sex relationship in the physical realm? Would they also be in a same-sex relationship in the spiritual realm? I don't know if he's here or not, so hopefully he'll get to us. Let's see. So, guys, this isn't a punishment, right? I know it might sound like it with all of the different layers to what a spiritual spouse can do in your life. They are not punishing you, all right? It's just a way for them to get your attention so that you can properly realign with them and your life can actually get better and flow much better, all right? You're not helpless in this process. You're equipped right now just by listening to this message to know that you could be dealing with a spiritual spouse. In that, you want to go ahead and do the proper ritual work. You want to go ahead and take the steps that are needed in order for you to remedy this problem in your life. All right. So that's all I do have for you guys. I do plan on next week to talk about yummy appeasement. This is a request that I've gotten, and I'm finally able to get to this because I was trying to get out a lot of things. So I forget who did request it. Thank you, whoever it is. And we're going to talk about this dynamic in more depth next week. So for those of you all who are just joining, if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments in YouTube, on YouTube, brother. And I'll get to those whenever I can. And if you don't have any more questions or comments now, I'm going to take leave of you. As always, guys, Ashe. Please have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.